Good morning. This is the Transportation Infrastructure Committee today for Thursday, February 8, 2018, 8:45 a.m., 26th floor of City Hall, City Council of Kansas City, Missouri. I'm City Councilman Jermaine Reed. I represent the 3rd District, and I chair this committee. We have a quorum for the committee, and we'll introduce our committee members. Starting with you, Vice Chair.
Kevin McManus, 6th District.
Dan Fowler, 2nd District.
Quentin Lucas, 3rd District at large.
And our staff who also join us here at the dais.
Sherry McIntyre, City Manager's Office.
Christy Pugh, City Clerk's Office.
Nelson Munoz, Law Department.
We have a full agenda today. We will switch around just a tad bit. If you are here for ordinance number 170963, it be held for 1 week. So if someone is here for that, without any objections from the committee, of course, hearing none, seeing none. Again, if you're here for that ordinance 170963 will be held, which was re-referred back to this committee last week, held for 1 week. We will start with item number 68, Madam Clerk. That's 180068, and then we will go with the rest of the docket as printed. So, Madam Clerk, if you could start with the item number ending in 68.
Yes, sir. Ordinance number 180068, authorizing the city manager to enter into a cost-sharing agreement with the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission for the US 169 Buck O'Neill Bridge over the Missouri River project, and recognizing this ordinance as having an accelerated effective date.
All right, thank you. Wes?
Morning, Chairman Reed, members of the committee. Wes Minder with the City Manager's Office. What we have before you is just give you a quick recap of where we are on the I-70 US 169 Buck O'Neill Bridge planning environmental linkages study and replacement. Currently, right now, the city has, since the passage of Resolution 170265, we've worked and discussed with our regional partners at the Mid-America Regional Council, and we've secured an additional $40 million of federal funding from the Surface Transportation Program. MoDOT has agreed to up their contribution to the project of $100 million, which is the cost to replace the bridge in kind. We have applied for 2 federal grants through the Tiger and the Infra program, but we have not heard what the status of those are. Those programs are kind of in the logjam of what's going on in Washington, D.C. with transportation funding and everything else that's going on. And then 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, the PIAC renewal was sent to the April 4th ballot, and that includes funding for the city's share of the remaining gap. In order for all this to happen, in order to keep the bridge in service, we need to begin short-term repairs this year and then also begin the environmental assessment on the project, which is part of the National Environmental Protection Policy Act, where we have to evaluate the environmental impact of building a new bridge. So we have, we're working on just the conceptual stuff on the Pell study. We hope to have public meetings to roll out the proposed alternatives to that in March. And as far as details on what the new bridge is going to be, what it's going to look like, where it's going to go, how it's going to connect to I-35, how it's going to impact the downtown airport, that will be evaluated during this NEPA work that we will be starting here with the execution of this this cost share agreement. So, city applied for $3.5 million of towards the $7 million project to do the environmental work and the short-term repairs. And the short-term repairs that need to be done immediately include reinforcing and strengthening the center pier in the Missouri River. It has a scour, as shown in the picture there, where 60 years of river flow has eroded out around the center pier, and then also the expansion joints, since the bridge is 60 years old, are starting to come apart, and so those need to be replaced. So the short-term rehab that MoDOT is planning will repair those joints, the center pier, and then also the cable retainers. Since the bridge is a suspension bridge, the metal cables that come down are held in place, and those over the years, because they're located below the bridge, they've been coated with salt and wear and tear, and so those need to be reinforced. So the plan is MoDOT will put the project out to bid in March. They've actually submitted the plans already for approval through Federal Highways to do that. They hope to award the project at the May Commission meeting, and the plan is to keep 2 lanes open going northbound during the entire construction of the project. The reason for that is Kansas has shut down westbound I-70, and also most of our life safety service for the downtown airport comes from downtown, and so we want to be able to keep access going north into the airport open. So if we do have a situation with either life flight or organ transplant where they need to get across the river fast, KCPD and the fire department could shut the bridge down and allow that to happen to get in. But folks who are tenants at the downtown airport or users of the downtown airport will be able to go up to Briarcliff, and they'll have to detour around. And so it'll be a minor inconvenience as they head south, but as far as heading north to get across the bridge, it'll be fine. And then also it'll help with commuter traffic in the evening, because a lot of commuters, myself included, who live up in Platte County, would not be able to use I-70 to go over to Kansas City, Kansas. And so this will allow at least folks in the morning to get out, or I'm sorry, in the evening to get out, and in the morning they'll still be able to come through the Kansas route as part of the options, in addition to the Heart of America and the Paseo Bridge. The work on this short-term rehab will start kind of in mid-July, and MoDOT hopes to have the project done by December 1st. I have two websites on the slide if there's anybody that's watching. I encourage folks to go to the Beyond the Loop KC website. That has information on the planning study, including survey of all the alternatives and some of the concepts. And then the easiest way is just to do a search for MoDOT Buck O'Neill Bridge, but there is the long URL of the MoDOT website where this graphic and other information, pertinent information, is available, and folks can, MoDOT public engagement staff has done a great job of keeping news articles and other things linked. So I encourage anyone that has any questions to use MoDOT as a resource on that. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation this morning. This has certainly been something that we all as a city council, and certainly the entire region, has been focused on. This bridge, of course, I think as you mentioned, 60 years old, and when we named it, or I guess renamed it, the Buck O'Neill Bridge, I kept thinking, why are we giving Buck O'Neill the worst bridge? But as I think a bit further about it, of course, Buck would revel in this, thinking that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure this has pride and dignity, and something that certainly represents the rich history and legacy that he certainly leaves in connecting and being a bridge builder for the entire Kansas City region. A couple of questions that I want to ask you. I think from your presentation, you talked about the, of course, shared agreement that we're going to have with many of our regional partners, the $400 million, excuse me, that we have from the federal resources. But then you also drilled down a bit and talked about the repairs. Excuse me. Could you talk about a little bit further, I guess, what all these repairs will detail? Because you had a slide that had a few of those, but if you could maybe touch a little bit further in terms of why that 6-month gap is needed for the repairs.
So right now, as you can see in the upper picture there, the expansion joints, which are basically like fingers that hold the bridge together at the 3 pier locations, those, because of rust and settlement, have started to come apart. And so if you go across, you'll get a bounce. There's a risk of a snowplow hitting those. And also, too, these are very fickle. Before we replaced the Paseo Bridge with the Kit Bond Bridge, we had to shut that down in the winter because the bridge during the cold weather had contracted and those joints came apart. This past summer, MoDOT had the same situation on the I-70 bridge at Boonville, where they came apart, and they had to do an emergency replacement. And so what it is just over time, through settlement, rust, expansion and contraction, especially during the cold months when your steel will shorten up, those things come apart. And if they come apart too far, then it becomes a hard, to keep the integrity of the deck together. And then also you have what's shown on the bottom, what's called for lack of a better term, a butt joint, because it butts up against each other. And those joints are a little more intermittent, and you can see that they've kind of worn apart. And so to keep the integrity of the slabs together, we need to replace those. And then the center pier is pretty obvious that we need to install some rock there to protect it. You know, if a barge or a high water event came through and something hit that, there's a chance of dislodgement where that center pier could be, it wouldn't be toppled, but it could be moved enough such that the bridge would not be able to support loads. And then also in the picture here, I'm trying to show with the mouse, where these cables come down. As shown in the existing bridge here, you can see where those cables are hanging. Those cables are welded and retained in place on the side of the bridge with a simple 90-degree angle bar, and some of those angle bars have rusted off. And so MoDOT's contractor will come in there and reinforce those retainer joints to keep the deck attached to the cables.
So let me actually ask you this question. You know, I know that most of our infrastructure certainly is structurally sound, and it is built to last for a very long time. That leads me to the question. With all the extra traffic that will likely be on the bridge, do we feel that there's a wear and tear that this will be structurally sound to hold the additional traffic and wear and tear that the bridge will
Yeah,
face?
MoDOT has HDR Engineering, which is doing regular inspections on the project. And so as an engineering firm, since they're an outside firm, they're being extra cautious because if anything were to happen, ultimately they would be facing some issues with that. And so based on just past practices, MoDOT has had a couple of these similar bridges where they've done some rehabilitation. So based on other experiences around the country, we feel very comfortable that what we're doing will be a short-term repair, which will allow the serviceability. The 35-year long-term repair, which would require the 2-year closure, was a lot more elaborate, where it actually went in and replaced a lot of the rivets on the bridge and a lot of the different truss structures that, they're fine now, but they may be in a condition where in 5 to 10 years or 20 years they may have provided failure. And so the long-term repair was going to take a lot longer and cost a lot more money because it was going to replace a lot more things. But the engineers and MoDOT feel that what we're doing right now will be enough to keep the bridge in place until we get a new structure opened.
Let's open up for questions, comments for ordinance number 180068. Seeing none, Councilmember Justice has joined us.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. We'll open up for any questions, comments from the public for ordinance number 180068. Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that ordinance number 180068 be reported out of this committee with recommendation of advance and due pass.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed indicate with the same sign. The ordinance passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.